20.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 16 of the 3rd and 20 Dynasty podcast. Thank you for tuning in and listening to us. Hopefully you guys are having a successful fantasy season. Jake and JT, how are you guys?
Good as always there, Lunas. Good as always.
Yeah, I bet you're feeling good, Jake.
We're chilling outside the playoffs. For full disclosure about this episode, if it ever comes up, we're taping this on Monday night. It's before the Steelers and Bengals play. Jake is currently ahead of Frank, or I don't know what to call him right now. I guess producer for this podcast. And Jake is leading.
Producer. Yeah.
Jake is leading Frank by 35 points, but Frank has Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson in the lineup. So things could get interesting during the filming of this podcast. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, boys. I'm pretty nervous. Last time the Steelers faced Cincinnati, I believe Deontay went off for 20 and Claypool 19. So that would be a big fat L if they repeat that. And just giving a PSA for when something happens in this game, because it looks like it's about to kick off here in about 15 minutes.
You should be nervous.
Oh boy, Frank, you just lurking in the background. I love it.
Thanks, lurking. He's watching.
All right, let's get into this.
Yeah, let's go. Jake, what's your highlights?
All right, so last week I asked you guys if Derrick Henry reaches 2,000 yards on the season. He had another unreal day. 24 carries, 147 yards, and another touchdown. He now has 1,679 yards and 15 touchdowns on the season. He needs 321 yards to get to 2,000, and he plays Green Bay and Houston in the final 2 weeks of the year. Any thoughts? Any concerns? Does he make it, guys?
He's literally right on pace. I think he's only a couple yards behind what he would have needed to keep the same average going. At this point, I think I said last week, I said yes. I think I'm sticking with that. It's really just a question of where the Titans going to be in the playoffs. We already see that there's a huge race shaking up. It's no guarantee that they'll even be in the playoffs. So I'm going to assume that they are going to lean on Derrick Henry for the next 2 weeks, which means he probably will break 2,000 yards.
Okay. Let me preface this by saying I'm rooting for him to reach 2,000 because that'd be awesome. I think if I have to give my realistic guess, I think he falls just short. I think he's going to fall just short. I think Green Bay is going to score a lot to the point where Tennessee is going to have to pass more often. Just 347 in how many games? 2 games?
Yeah, 321. About 100. Yeah, he needs about 160 yards in each game.
As good as Derrick Henry is, that's tough. I think he'll fall if I had to give a guess, I'll say 1960.
Oh, you're really giving it real close there.
Because I think he'll get close. Because I think now he's he could go for 100 any game they give him the carries. 100 plus any game they give him the carries. But man, 150 yards per game average.
He needs 160 to get there. But I honestly think the Green Bay matchup is good for him because Green Bay has a good pass defense. With Jair Alexander and a few other guys on that defense. Their run defense, on the other hand, can't stop anybody right now, and I think they're just going to hand the ball off to him another 25, 30 times as they've been doing. And we spoke about it a bunch on this podcast about how Houston, they actually might be the worst run defense ever. They give up in the past, what was the stat? In 4 weeks, they gave up 8 top 24 running backs, which is 2 a week. Their run defense is just absolutely atrocious, and I think he gets it. Depending on seeding, if they're locked into a playoff spot, I think week 17, I think they might take it easy and just rest him. But if he does play both games and both games have meaning to the Titans, I think there's a good chance he gets it because these 2 run defenses are just not good.
Well, only other takeaway I think I'd have from this, though, is we're talking about Derrick Henry potentially breaking 2,000 yards, and he's still only RB3 on the year. So that's why you gotta like really factor in receptions. If you're in half point PPR, full point PPR, receptions and
who's at 1 and 2 right now?
1 and 2 are Dalvin Cook and Alvin
Kamara.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
You know, Derrick Henry, other than Nick Chubb, who's running back 12 on the year, Derrick Henry is the only other running back in the top 12 with under 20 receptions. So that's definitely something you want to keep in mind when you're factoring in who you want as your RB1, because it takes a near 2,000-yard rushing season to keep Derrick Henry in the RB1 category.
Just a quick non-dynasty point for you guys. If he gets 2,000 yards, does he have a shot at the MVP?
No.
Not with the quarterbacks this season. Quarterbacks have been so good.
Come on. Guy gets
maybe offensive player of the year.
Doesn't even have a shot at the MVP.
Dude, just look at the seasons that Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers are having. It's like also with MVP basically being the best quarterback award nowadays. It's just tough to see unless the Titans had a better record.
Fair enough. With that, I'll move on to my next highlight. And that's Brady did it to the Falcons once again. He was down 24-7, not quite 28-3, but 24-7 with 7.5 minutes to go in the third quarter, and he beat them. He had 390 yards, 31 of 45, 2 touchdown passes. This brings me to my point: is as a dynasty asset, obviously he's not worth a whole lot anymore because he's 42, 43 years old, whatever he is. How long do you trust him? How much more does this guy got? Because I'm shocked. This man just doesn't die.
After next year, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I'll give him next year, and he's got great receivers around him. He's got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. I think both of them were wide receiver ones last year. I know Chris Godwin was like a top 5 fantasy wide receiver last year, and then obviously Mr. Big Chest, who caught the game-winning touchdown, legend. But I just like I want to, but like, are we gonna count on 45-year-old Brady? 45 years old.
44
after next
44.
season.
Oh, after next season? Okay.
After next season. That's what I'm saying. I'll trust him for next season, but after that, at age 45, I don't know if they'll have Chris Godwin anymore. I don't know. I wouldn't trust it.
Yeah, so I just don't see him signing another contract. Like, I get you're Tom Brady. You want to, have all the records, have all the accolades, but like, there's more to life than football. I get maybe not for someone that's like
not for him.
Yeah, but already it's like, if it wasn't for this game where he had like a great game, mostly second half against the Falcons, and he actually threw some deep passes, like, there are questions about Brady being able to throw a deep ball. He had the worst passer rating for your passes over 20 yards in the entire NFL out of quarterbacks. Like, I don't think he completed a pass over 20 yards in the past month. So at this point, it's like diminishing returns. Like, okay, you did pass for another 4,000 yards on a different team, and you passed for another, 25, 30 touchdowns. But like, you've already won all the Super Bowls. You've dominated for nearly 20 years. Like, go spend time with your kids or something. Like, that's
all
enough.
I'm gonna say to close this one out: whenever he's played a full 16 games, he's never finished outside quarterback 10. Never.
It's actually really impressive. I didn't know that's that.
Real quick before we move on, if you're a contender, what price are you paying for Tom Brady?
For next season?
For next season or this playoff run? I mean, obviously
in the off season.
This is assuming super flex, right?
Yes.
Always.
Yeah. It's hard to give more than like a late second. Like not necessarily late. I'll say second half second, so that could be like a mid-second-ish.
If I didn't have if I had Drew Brees as my other quarterback, first off, you should be drafting some other quarterbacks if these are your quarterbacks. But like, if I have questionable people that I don't know if they'll have a job, or like a Teddy Bridgewater with the new GM and stuff, and I'm concerned. And I think Tom Brady will get me a championship. I'd be willing to give up a second. Now, assuming that you're a contender, that probably will end up being a late second. But even if it's a mid-second, anything in the quest for championship, I'm okay giving up for Tom Brady.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat there. Mid to late second, I think, is a fair price for a quarterback that could finish in the top 10 again next year with these weapons. Obviously, he might lose Godwin in free agency, but he still looks like he's going to have Evans and Gronk and OJ Howard will come back. OJ Howard. So I think he's still okay. Better weapons than he's had in New England for the last 4 years there. So I don't think he's in trouble.
You're not feeling N'Keal Harry.
Yeah, N'Keal Harry, good one.
Better weapons than most of his career. They're the Randy Moss years, but other than that, okay, Wes Welker, kind of type player can go around the slot, but you just don't have those kind of weapons like he does now.
Yeah, I mean, he had prime Gronk, but outside of prime Gronk, there was not much else on that roster.
Welker, and he kind of made Welker.
And Kembro Tompkins.
Aaron Dobson.
Aaron Dobson was the truth. Aaron Dobson was the truth.
We're off the rails. I'm just going to go with my highlight then. So the surprise of the prior to kickoff was Zeke Elliott was not going to be playing for the Cowboys. There's rumors that he might be sitting out, whatnot. But everyone kind of thought he was going to play yesterday as we were recording this, and then came out 11 o'clock that he'd be out. So what people do, they fired up their Tony Pollards, the handcuff, and he had a really great game. He had 12 rushes for 69 yards, nice, almost 6 yards per carry and 2 touchdowns. And then he also had 9 receptions 9 targets for 6 receptions and 63 yards. I know that some of it was a last, kind of blowout game, kind of point stacking, but it was a very solid game from Tony Pollard. He looked very good at breaking tackles, pretty elusive kind of player, and he actually outscored any game of Zeke's in the past 32 games, which is just crazy. Now, that kind of leans on the point of you probably shouldn't pay your running backs. When you have someone like Dak Prescott, who his contract is still up in the air, and we're getting close to the offseason, and he's someone that you see now, you could prove he gives your team wins. He adds value to your team. And meanwhile, Zeke's replacement is out there helping the team and probably was the star from the game. So it's tough. That leads me to what's going to happen with this offseason with other running backs that have to get paid, namely Aaron Jones, Chris Carson, James Conner. Do we think they're going to re-sign with their teams, or do we think they're going to be see ya, we already got our new guys?
In terms of the free agency question, I think Aaron Jones will be paid by someone. I think one of the benefits with Aaron Jones versus giving when you talk about giving running backs new contracts in comparison to Zeke, Aaron Jones has had way less carries throughout his career. He's had way less tread on him. Even during his best seasons, he's never been kind of a consistent 20 carry a game guy. They usually let in Jamal Williams for some touches. They never the type to give him a whole bunch of carries. He usually does a lot of his damage. Usually it's maybe 15 carries, and then he'll have some catches. But so I think someone will pay Aaron Jones. I don't know if it'll be Green Bay or if it'll be maybe someone in Atlanta or something, or Miami. As for Chris Carson's the interesting one. If I had to bet my money on it right now, I think he re-signs with Seattle for a pretty cheap contract. But I don't know, because like you said, we found every single season in the NFL, you can draft a running back in the 3rd or 4th round, not even just using a top pick, like I said, 3rd or 4th round, and you can get very solid production out of them. We see Pollard just filled in, and he did great. I've seen, I think it's a debate right now about how far away is Tony Pollard from Zeke in terms of just who's a better running back right now, or if he's even possibly better. So It's tough to get paid. You really need to be a threat in the receiving game, which is the only reason I think Aaron Jones does. But I agree with you in terms of like for those other guys, it's gonna be tough, like a James Conner or something.
To add on this, I think we have seen this season that it can go both ways on paying running backs. Obviously, Titans paid Derrick Henry. I think we can all agree that was well worth it for the Titans. Vikings paid Dalvin Cook. I think that's well worth it. Obviously,
Kamara.
Then Kamara got paid. That's been well worth it, even with Latavius Murray having a pretty decent season. But then you guys got Mixon. Mixon was hurt. That doesn't look good. CMC got hurt, but I mean he's been an animal when he plays, and I think they're more sitting him now just because it doesn't mean anything and just saying get healthy for next year, which I agree with. I think it's a smart play by the Panthers. Don't let your franchise running back put on more carries and potentially get more injured for no reason. But then again, we've also seen guys like Wayne Gallman who fills in and he's looked pretty good. Tony Pollard filled in and looked really good as well. So I think even Carlos Hyde with, Chris Carson out has looked pretty good in Seattle. Obviously, he's been a starting running back before in his career, but no one really expected it this year. So I think running backs goes both ways, but it's definitely team dependent. I think, the teams that it worked out for were the teams that heavily depend on the run and not guys like the Cowboys who have Dak Prescott, an elite quarterback that can throw the ball for 500 yards a game, no problem.
All right, yeah. I think I'm in the same boat with you guys. I just have a hard time paying a running back when you could get value elsewhere. You could sign other players. I guess there are exceptions. Like even though CMC is hurt, he is most of the offense when healthy. Players like that, Derrick Henry really opens it up for Ryan Tannehill and AJ Brown and whatnot. But yeah, for the most part, I'd rather just not spend the money on the running back. Moving on.
JT, real quick.
Yep.
If you were a Zeke owner, what is the most you would pay right now for Tony Pollard?
It's a good question because if you own Zeke, you need to own Tony Pollard. We've said it a couple times this season, and I can't emphasize it enough now. If you own Zeke, you must have Tony Pollard. Like pay. As for what you'd pay for him, JT, what are you thinking?
Well, at this point, I feel like it's safe to assume he's going to be the person that's going to take over for Zeke. Like it's very clear that he was able to fill in the role and he was able to be productive. I don't see them going out and drafting other running backs when they could draft defensive players because that's very clearly their need currently. So I don't think it's out of the question to give up a first. If you're a contender and you've got Zeke and you give up that late first, like I think that's fine. I don't see any other running backs at the end of the first that are being mocked currently in rookie drafts to be better than Tony Pollard will be. So yeah, I'd give up a late
question first. I think for you is, what do you think's a fair price for Zeke right now?
That's interesting. I still think you would want a late first just because of the body of work you saw in previous years and even the beginning of this year. But who's giving up a late first for Zeke right now?
The only way I can see someone giving up a late first is if like they're a contender that maybe just needs one more piece for next season.
Hold up. So you're saying you'd pay a late first for Tony Pollard, but you wouldn't pay a late first for Zeke? Is that what's being said?
I never said I'd pay a late first for Tony Pollard.
That's what JT
That was
said.
JT.
That was JT.
Tony Pollard for me is the second round.
I would pay the late first for both. I'd pay more than a late first for Zeke at this point. I'd still pay more than that.
If someone, hold on. Question, JT.
Yes.
If you own Tony Pollard, right?
Yes.
And someone offered you Zeke straight up for him.
Yeah. Well, it always depends on the, what your team is like, but just a value for value trade, I'm still taking Zeke.
Yeah, Clownus, you need to chill out here a little bit. One good game from Tony Pollard is not dethroning Zeke.
One game of Tony Pollard. Zeke's done. We're finished. She's gone.
I was just asking.
I'm glad you guys said that. I thought I was crazy for saying I'd probably still take Zeke.
Yo, Frank, you got that clown face queued up there to put on Luna's
I
head?
was just asking.
Listen, one more clownist take, and the clown face is coming out. Luna. Right? Watch yourself.
I'm like 2 more takes away from getting fired.
Yeah, I think he was trying to make the point of Zeke Elliott's kind of being undervalued right now, and he probably should be worth more than elite first. I personally would give up more than elite first for Zeke. If I'm a contender, I'm giving up way more than elite first because it's what am I getting that's going to help me now at the end of the first round? Sure, there's probably a wide receiver that's going to pan out. Sure, there's probably a running back that you might be able to snag. Although we've seen most of the time the running backs come in the beginning of the rounds, even in Superflex. Those are going to be the good ones. You'll have your random James Robinsons at some point who do pop out. But yeah, I'd be willing to give up probably elite first in this year, and then another first next year for Zeke still.
You give up 2 firsts for Zeke?
If I'm a contending player, yeah, because you got to think, 1, Dak Prescott's coming back. Hopefully. We'll assume, all right? 2, the offensive line is going to get healthy again. 3, the defense has to get better. They literally can't possibly get worse. They're a record bad defense this year. So you're probably going to be running more. You're not going to be passing 50 times a game like you were in the beginning of the season. Zeke is still, we even mocked Zeke as what, RB 10 in our mock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was late a first, but 07, 108, not in that early necessarily range. I think you're right. If you're giving up a first that's a championship first, right? Let's just assume 12 teams, 111, 112, then yeah, you'd have to throw more to get a Zeke owner to budge. I just think that if you're a Zeke owner, unless your team is terrible, why are you selling Zeke right now? I think this is the worst time in his career to sell him. Yeah, maybe if you get 2 firsts, like you're saying, you could definitely pull the trigger on that. But I think you're right that could be a great buy low. But I think we should move on to Lunas's highlight now.
So my highlights this week, first one, and it's gonna be. Well,
Yo,
I mean,
Frank,
I'm happy about it.
Now. Please just cue it up now.
I'm happy about it. Like I said, I'm an Eagles fan first. Jalen fucking hurts, man. Jalen fucking hurts.
Okay.
First off, I like to say that the Eagles have 2 quarterbacks that are better than Danny Dimes. That's my first take for this segment. But no, more importantly, let's talk about Jalen Hurts. So Jalen Hurts yesterday at Arizona was 24-44, 338 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and 63 rushing yards with another rushing score. He fell down right away, 16-0. There was a block punt. Kyler Murray went off, by the way. This segment isn't about Kyler, but Kyler, I think, had his best passing game of his career, yardage-wise. But Jalen Hurts, man, I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting him to play this well. And he, fantasy-wise, he's one of the better fantasy quarterbacks. I don't know where you guys rank him. I think as a starter, you'd have to put him in that top 15, top 12?
Jalen Hurts?
In terms of fantasy QBs? Hurts.
No, I'm not bumping him up that high yet.
Not yet. One game? Not yet. But he's definitely his floor rushing-wise into that category yet. It's one game. Previous game, he had a decent day. I think he had 18 points, something like that. So he's good. And obviously today he had 37, which is an unbelievable fantasy day. But You got to see more. It's been 2 games. Cardinals defense isn't anything special, so not reading that far into it yet. But yes,
pretty good
it was a
week.
nice day.
No, I'm just kidding.
Listen, Linus. All I'm gonna say is you are a complete clown. Because I've been saying it all year. Put in Jalen Hurts. Put in Jalen Hurts. Carson Wentz sucks. They finally do it. You're like, oh, don't worry. Carson Wentz will still be the starter. Do you still believe Carson Wentz is going to be the starter? Do you still believe that? Because there's no chance after today that Philly fans, one of the most brutal fan bases in the entire league, if not the most brutal in the entire league, goes back to Carson Wentz after seeing what Jalen Hurts did today. There's no, or on Sunday. There's no chance.
Okay, I see what you're doing. I see your scheme.
You were calling
for Jalen Hurts.
What scheme?
You were listen. You were calling for Jalen Hurts because of your disliking towards Carson Wentz, not because of your liking towards Jalen Hurts.
He is objectively bad. Objectively, he is bad.
Let me continue. I did not expect Jalen Hurts to play this well. I don't know how many people did. Maybe some Oklahoma fans, maybe some Alabama fans. I didn't expect him to play this well. He is completely blown. I was like completely shocked yesterday. Like I was like blown away because I didn't expect this. But I will say with Carson Wentz, because you're bringing up my guy Wentz. Wentz, I still
do not bring up Wentz.
I know I'm not saying. Obviously, I knew he was going to be part of the discussion. I still have a belief in him. Had Hurts not been playing amazing, like way better than I could have ever imagined, I still would have stood by 1,000% Wentz is starting. Now, because Hurts is playing this well, it becomes tricky. Because while I do think Wentz is good, and this has just been I think he's got the yips this year. I just think like it's mental at this point with him. I think he's second guessing every single throw he made.
Well, that's the point, is because it's in his head, right? The way that Jalen Hurts is played will always live back here. And in the back of his head, he'll always be like, yo, 1 or 2 with bad throws, and I'm going to be pulled from this game because this guy behind me is going to come in and lead him to a win or make the team look better. Always going to be sitting back there as long as Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz are on the same team together.
That's a fair point. No, that part's a fair point. I'm more just going to say I don't know where Wentz is going to be, especially with how well Hurts is playing now, because I didn't expect this. I did not expect.
So you're getting in and saying Wentz won't be on the team. Is that what you're saying? Because that's what
I'm not listing that as my final take. I'm saying I'm not as certain because I did not expect Hurts to play this well at all. Like over 300 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 60+ rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, and no turnovers on the road, second start. I wasn't expecting this.
How much better just overall does the offense look? The offense looks competent, which it hasn't all season. The offense
does look competent. I am kind of low-key salty that Doug Peterson never gave Miles Sanders carries until now with Jalen Hurts. So I don't know about that. But I don't know what to say. I do think Wentz is good, still a good quarterback. Like if you put him on the Colts next season, I think there's a decent chance he makes the Pro Bowl. Like that. That's the belief
I said as long as he's on the Eagles, he won't be good because it's just too mental. And with Hurts behind him, he will just be too much in his own head, thinking about Hurts and thinking about even Nick Foles and thinking about just being benched multiple times. I know some of it was for injury, yes, but the way that the team plays without him is just better. And I think he knows that. And I just think there's no chance he's successful again in Philadelphia. And I stand by it. And that's just that.
It's tricky because I think he would have been successful next year in Philly had Jalen Hurts not been playing this amazing. Because had Jalen Hurts just been playing like a rookie, like a second-round rookie quarterback, I would have said, oh, I still would have stood by the new OC Wentz entering next year, and I think he has that bounce back year. I think he could have played well in Philadelphia with the new OC, just as well as he would have played on like the Colts or something. But with Hurts playing this well, it's hard to move from it. It's hard just because like this is like for me. I think I know it's only 2 games, but I mean the other quarterback hasn't played much either. I think Hurts kind of looks better than Tua. I won't say the other 2 first-round quarterbacks, but I think there's a case to be made. Like I'm just comparing both of those 2 because those are the 2 Alabama quarterbacks.
All right,
that's true.
This is probably where I'll interject. I did a quick, head rankings while you guys were debating this. I think I have Hurts around QB 18 currently. I have Carson Wentz at QB 21. Tua I have ranked a lot higher, around quarterback 10.
10.
Yeah.
If hold on, if Hurts, if say Wentz gets traded to the Colts or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Hurts is entering next year as a starter.
Mm-hmm.
And same with Tua in Miami. Are you taking Tua over Hurts with like both as the definite starters?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Miami adds a significant weapon this offseason. Whether that's a running back,
I agree.
Whether that's a wide receiver, I don't know. I think they add a significant weapon, and Tua's going to just continue to grow. He's a guy that's just proven to win at every level he's been at, and I don't see it stopping in the NFL. I think he's a very successful quarterback paired with a very good coach in Brian Flores. I think it's a great pairing for Miami.
The important thing to note too is Tua took Jalen Hurts' job already. Like when they were both at Alabama, Tua took over for Jalen Hurts. Like I like Tua the prospect way better than Jalen Hurts. I've liked what I've seen out of Jalen Hurts in the NFL, but Tua is just better. Like I just like Tua better.
Real quick.
I'm saying again. I'm thinking
real quick.
Go ahead, Jake.
Breaking news. Some breaking news at this current moment. Cam Akers has been announced that he will miss week 16. So I hope you don't have him in your finals if you made it that far. And I hope you do have Darrell Henderson. So just breaking news in there.
I want to off myself.
I've not heard that yet. That's surprising.
I
Why?
Myself. I have my best fantasy week of the season the week after I get eliminated, and now Darrell Henderson's starting. Cool. But so back to the other thing. Again, with Hurts and Tua, I'm not necessarily like this is kind of the tricky difference comes with fantasy in terms of better NFL player versus better fantasy player. Like the case I'm making for Hurts is fantasy wise. I do think Tua is a better passer than Jalen Hurts and a better traditional NFL quarterback. The only reason I'm saying where if Hurts is the undisputed starter is where his rushing ground could make that pretty close. That was just kind of the case I was making fantasy wise. NFL wise, if I was starting a franchise, yeah, I'm probably taking Tua.
The other thing I want to say, just to comment on what JT said about how when Tua, we all know in the national championship, took over for Jalen Hurts. The one thing that is clearly apparent is that Jalen Hurts that year of college compared to the Jalen Hurts now are 2 different football players. I just want to make that because Jalen Hurts, especially at Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley, his progression as a passer of the football and even until now is honestly ridiculous. Yeah, he is a completely different player. He has transcended to an entire level of new level of quarterback than what he was at Alabama. And I think that the system that Doug Peterson is running really fits him. I just kind of wanted to throw that in there real quick about the whole Tua thing.
Would you take Hurts over Tua, Frank?
Oh, fuck no.
So,
but I'm just saying that, it's completely different, though. I think that's just kind of like, yeah, you're right. Tua is a more talented player and a better thrower of the football than Jalen Hurts. I think Tua has a lot more of the nuances of the quarterback position down. But, yeah, I'm just, Jalen Hurts, first off, he's only played 2 games. Yeah, he's had 2 good games, but as a quarterback in the National Football League, just, with the whole Carson Wentz scenario and all that, it's a whole lot harder to be good season in, season out than it is to have a couple of really good football games at the end of the day. And I think Tua just has a better chance.
Yeah. Like, while I do like Jalen Hurts' rushing floor, and he has looked better than I expected. Like he in both his games, he's barely passed over 50% completion. Like it hasn't been great passing. There are a few times where I saw him overthrow Jalen Reagor. I mean, one arguably could have been defensive pass interference, but like I don't think he's I think he's a similar passing quarterback to Lamar Jackson. Like I don't see it being much better. I think he will improve, and I think he probably will edge out Lamar as far as a passer is, but then he's not going to be a better rusher than Lamar. So, you know, I do like Jalen Hurts' future if he does end up being that unquestioned starter in Philly. I do think he'll end up being pretty good, but I'm still taking Tua over him.
Before we move on from I want to ask this question. This is an interesting question. Sorry, Lunas.
You're good.
Would you take Jalen Hurts over one of these, like, let's just top 5, right? Kyle Trask, not Trevor Lawrence, but Fields, Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance. Are you thinking about Jalen Hurts being worth more valuable than one of these quarterbacks at this current moment?
He'd be my QB4
possibly
behind Lawrence, Fields, Trask, then Hurts, then Lance.
Hey. You're low on Wilson. Whoa. This is a Trey Lance pod. Respect him now.
I love Trey Lance. You don't believe me. I'm going to be rooting for him every single week. You better believe it.
Apparently you just don't believe in him. It's all about believing, Linus.
I guess the big question then, though, is what pick would you be willing to give up for Jalen Hurts? Because that's what it'll amount to, essentially. Like, are you willing to give up pick 109 for Jalen Hurts? Because you probably would get one of those quarterbacks at 109.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be Lawrence or Fields. And depending on where they get drafted.
Wilson, Trask, or Lance at 9, potentially.
Yeah, depending on where they get drafted and whatnot. Like, I assume at least one of them will fall to 109 at the least. A super flex rookie draft. Would you give up a 109 for Hurts right now?
Yeah.
Who says yes?
I personally would. They're going to give him a ton of rushing opportunities. I think he's going to be good for around 60 rushing yards a game. He's impressed me way more as a passer than I expected him to be. I think the Eagles probably add another receiver. I don't know whether it be free agency or the draft. I personally would, because I think, like, I'm assuming there's a decent chance he starts next year as the guy. Assuming, like, he doesn't just completely just shit the bed these next 2 weeks, it's, like, hard to not play him. So I personally would.
It's close. I'll give you it's close. I think I'm still a little lower. I think I would go
Would you go 112 for him?
112. Yeah,
111,
around
okay.
there. 111, 112. So if I, win the championship or if I'm a team like something like that, and you were high on him, believed in him, and you needed a quarterback and you didn't think one was going to get to you at 112, I think it's definitely a move.
That's fair. I guess that's around where 112 is probably more where I'm leaning. I think 109 is still a little bit too rich for me right now, for Jalen Hurts. But who knows? I could be wrong, and this could be one of the takes for next year. What's your other highlight, Luna?
My other highlight was, so as we've seen this season, Corey Davis has had. I know Jake's kind of been a believer in him heading into this season. And I know I was kind of one of those people who I thought he was going to be really good even after his rookie year, after his sophomore year. And I always thought it was QB play holding Corey Davis back. But then when I saw A.J. Brown go off next year, I was like, okay, this offense can support a number one receiver. It's just Corey Davis isn't living up to it. But this season now, he's been great. Corey Davis has been phenomenal. Even last weekend, he had a long, I think it was like a 68-yard touchdown or something. And he's just been great this season with AJ Brown also producing and Derrick Henry also producing. Like people were worried once AJ Brown came back, Corey Davis will kind of slip back to like how he was before, but he's continued to put up good numbers. So we know he's had a great season this year. I was gonna ask how do you guys generally feel about him heading into next season? Do you guys think he can keep this up? Do you guys think he's like a sell high this off season? How do you guys feel about him heading into next year?
I honestly view him as a pretty stable, low end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3. I was a guy that was believing in him in the preseason. I tried to buy him low. The owner wouldn't part with him, because he still had some attachment due to taking him high in our startup draft when he was a rookie. So it was hard to buy him for what the price that I was at that point. But my thought process behind why he was so, I guess why I thought he'd have a good season. Corey Davis has never had a full off season of being healthy. He was always recovering from some injury, always in camp, doing workouts on the side, not working with the starting quarterback. And then last year, before Tannehill took over, he was actually healthy. He had a nice full training camp, but the starter was Marcus Mariota. And the guy who was actually working with Tannehill was AJ Brown, who was working with the 2s at the time because he was a rookie. So he got the chemistry with Tannehill in training camp compared to Corey Davis, who was working with the 1s and Marcus Mariota. Now, this offseason, he was healthy again, 1, and 2, the quarterback was Ryan Tannehill. So he's finally had a full healthy offseason practicing with the starting quarterback. And he's a very talented guy. Like you said, Lunas, you never thought it was a talent issue. You thought it was a QB issue. And I think you're right. And it was just more of getting the chemistry with the guy that's actually starting.
My one caveat to all this, and I agree, I don't even know if it was more of a quarterback issue. It's just, I guess you could blame this on a quarterback, but Corey Davis did have good games in previous years, but it was just he had high peaks and low valleys. So it was like, each week you could have been getting 2 points, you could have been getting 15 points. You just didn't know what kind of week it would be for Corey Davis. Going forward, though, it's a concern of mine that this will be his contract year going into this next year because it'll be his 4th year on the team. And I just don't know what the Titans' future plan will be with him. That being said, I think at this point in time, if I look at consensus rankings and where they have him, I do believe that he's still being undervalued. So I wouldn't trade him, but it's tough for me to also go out and buy Corey Davis too. I don't know what his future outlook really will be because it's very possible that he does end up in a different setting where he doesn't get, he's not able to produce like he is now. So it's just a concern of mine, just to play the devil's advocate right here.
For reference, he's wide receiver 26 on the season in half-point PPR. He's having a fantastic year. Like I said, he's a low end 2, high end 3, and I think he'll be that at least next year in the same situation. And I think even if he goes somewhere else in free agency, he's proven that he can do this as long as he's in the right place. And obviously, if he goes to a place that doesn't have a quarterback, there'll be some concerns, but that's with everyone except for the absolute elite wide receivers.
All right. So moving trending up, trending down.
That's fair.
Yeah. So I'll kick off trending up, trending down with my trending up of the week. It's Baker Mayfield. Obviously last night versus the Giants, he tore them up. It wasn't that great a fantasy day. He only ended up putting up about 21 points, which is not bad, but not good. But I just think he looked a whole lot better and in the previous games, he's also looked a whole lot better. I think he's turned a corner. I think he's really figured it out. I think Kevin Stefanski's done a great job with this team and this offense in putting Baker in situations to be successful. In his past 3 games, he put up 28.9, 30, and 20.9. So he's been very hot lately. And also, one of those games was against Baltimore. He put up 30 against Baltimore. Like, that's a good defense defense. It's not like he's doing this against all bad defenses. Obviously, the Giants defense was a little banged up last night without James Bradbury, and missing a few other pieces on that defense due to some COVID stuff. So it wasn't that impressive, I guess, but he still looked good. He was just firing the ball, and I think only had 5 incompletions, I believe. He's just trending up, and I think he's a guy that I could look to buy in the offseason if the price isn't too high.
Yeah, I said this last week. He's kind of proved me wrong. I was a Baker doubter at the beginning of the year, saying I don't know if the Browns will give him that big extension after his rookie deal, because he kind of seemed almost replaceable for someone that may be cheaper. But these past couple weeks, he's really impressed me. I'll admit when I'm wrong. He's looked great. As you mentioned, the Baltimore defense is tough. That's a tough defense to go against. And he balled out against them last night. His completion percentage was insanely high. He didn't do anything crazy, but he got the job done. Still on the road, and the Giants defense, while missing Bradbury, it's been a really good defense, especially the second half of this season. You saw what they did to Seattle, and just especially the last few weeks, the Giants defense has been playing really well. So it's not like this is just some easy steamroll team. It's not like the other team in that stadium, the Jets. Well, actually, their defense looked pretty good yesterday. But
I think that was more the Rams, but that's a different issue.
Yeah, that's a whole other story. But yeah, Baker looked great. He's looked really good these last couple weeks, and I'll admit when someone proves me wrong, and Baker's proved me wrong. I'm a believer now in him.
That just reminded me. I missed my other highlight. That was the Jets blew the tank, and
we missed your highlight.
Yeah, missed my highlight. The Jets blew the tank, and that means the Jags are the current front runner for Trevor Lawrence, which is crazy. All the Jets had to do was lose a couple of games. I know that's not in the players' best interest. They're playing for contracts, they're playing to look good and have good tape for other teams. It's not in Adam Gase's best interest because he's done with the Jets. They're not keeping him. But still, that's
I feel so bad for Jets fans.
A crushing win for the Jets fans.
So bad.
Now, this leads me to 2 points, and then we could cut back into the trending up, trending down. But where that goes is, one, there are a lot of people that were going out and buying players like Denzel Mims and other pieces of the Jets offense, thinking that they were going to get Trevor Lawrence as their quarterback. That looks like it might not be the case now. So I guess that first part is more like a warning, a caution to don't expect certain things to happen in the offseason. I wouldn't expect Chris Godwin to go out and sign with someone else. He might get re-signed by the Bucs. There's tons of cases with players like Aaron Jones, James Conner, Chris Carson, who we mentioned for the running backs. You're basically gambling when it comes to that stuff. You're betting on something happening. But my next thing is, if the Jags are the number 1 spot and take Trevor Lawrence, that's going to screw up the whole draft, isn't it? For everything that was expected, because then you expected the Jets to take Justin Fields at 2, and the Bengals to take the offensive tackle from Oregon, whose name I forget, at 3. There was a certain,
Sewell.
Him. There's a certain order that people were predicting, and everyone was expecting, Joe Burrow is going to get his nice offensive lineman to protect him. The Jets will get their quarterback. The Jags will get the other quarterback, kind of thing. But now it's all different.
I honestly think the Jets may not take Fields at 2. I think they might say, we're going to go with Darnold and take the offensive lineman and see what happens.
Yeah,
it's a possibility.
If I had to bet money right now, I'm saying the Jets trade back a couple of spots. Nothing crazy, but probably to the back half of that top 10 to some team that wants Justin Fields bad. I don't know if maybe that can be a team like Carolina, maybe Atlanta or something. But I think they trade back. But yeah, you're right, JT. I just feel bad for Jets fans. This win is going to be meaningless literally for years.
I think the Jets Jets should now fire Adam Gase because he can't even lose right. Now is the time.
Yeah.
Gase.
That'd be hilarious firing him after the only one of the season. But this is such a blown opportunity. Like Trevor Lawrence, he's a lock to become just kind of a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. Like
you know that he's going to now lead the Jaguars to like 2 Super Bowls and be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and just because the Jets didn't get him.
DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, Colin Johnson, James Robinson, stocks are up on them.
Completely agree.
That's the next thing I was gonna say. If maybe the owner isn't as high on him, I'm guessing the DJ Chark owner is very aware of this. But someone who kind of hasn't gotten as much.
Owner is also very aware of this.
Yeah, Shenault probably is, but I would test out the prices on Shenault because he's a really good player who hasn't really gotten the full opportunity this year. And I think now next season he's gonna have a great year.
But again, you might be going out and you might be buying these players, and then next thing you know, like the Jags trade down or something, or they don't.
Okay, listen, JT. No one's trading out of the first spot. No one's trading out of the first spot.
Also, we're gonna have
to warn you about this phenomena, Clowness. He just warned you about people that were buying Jets players thinking they had Trevor Lawrence. Do not doubt Minshew mania. He wants this quarterback spot. He's gonna go out there and try his best to win football games. He doesn't want Trevor Lawrence. So go ahead, pay.
The only thing that I will say,
Dan Orlovsky tried his best when the Lions went 0-15.
Are you comparing Dan Orlovsky to Gardner Minshew?
Yeah. What, Minshew's the stud?
Well, speaking of, to tie this all in a nice, pretty circle and bow and whatnot, I did see on that Reddit Dynasty Fantasy Football, there was a thread at the beginning of the year, beginning of the offseason, that said Gardner Minshew had surpassed Baker Mayfield in value. And everyone...
I saw that.
Yeah, totally agreed. They were like, yeah, how could you even go out and buy Baker Mayfield at this point? Like, Baker Mayfield sucks. And obviously, things did change where Baker has been playing better this year and Gardner Minshew has been struggling. That's why it's so hard to trust other people, especially ones that you don't know, and so hard to, expect what's going to happen in the NFL. The NFL is a week-by-week league, any given Sunday, all the other cliches, and that comes with the draft.
First mistake is trusting the Dynasty Reddit. The Dynasty Reddit is just clownists talking to other clownesses.
Just saying, on one of the initial episodes of the 3rd and 20 podcast, we did warn you to sell Gardner Minshew, as I did in one of my Dynasty leagues. Just throwing that out there. JT, pat yourself on the back for me, please.
I got it.
I've been saying for a bit. I know Frank was on top of it too. Minshew, career-wise, he's gonna be a backup. He's a good backup, but that's just kind of what he is. We had someone in Lucas trying to sell me on him last summer. He's a guy in the league. He was on some early Dynasty episodes earlier in the season. But yeah, no, it's not big. I would say the Jags' only chance to win is next week against the Bears. That's like
Maserati made
totally possible that they win.
The only shot.
Totally possible that they win.
Yo, real quick before we move on. Oh wait, go ahead, Linus.
I was just gonna say, I will say if Trevor Lawrence, I'll say the if now because Frank wants me to be careful. If Trevor Lawrence is on the Jags, we're gonna have to bump up James Robinson in those rankings.
Yeah.
I think everyone would agree with that.
Yeah.
Really quickly about the whole Minshew thing, you can say that he's going to be a career backup. I am envisioning that he somehow gets to an NFC championship on the Vikings. You heard it here first.
On the Vikings?
It's going to happen at some point.
What, did this come in a dream?
Tell me Minshew is not the ideal guy that gets to an NFC championship for the Minnesota Vikings.
Wait. Keenum 2.0?
I do want to say with Frank, lives and breathes fantasy football. Frank, our producer, texted us one morning, and he's like, "Yo, guys," we're like, "What?" He's like, "This came to me in a dream." Like, what's up? And he's like spitting Dynasty draft takes, and that came to him.
All right, impromptu segment. We'll get into it. Tell me I'm wrong. Tight ends, while not the best first-round picks, in terms of players not completely busting, are the safest pick you can take early in a Dynasty draft. Not necessarily pick 3, but if you can get a good quality tight end in the first round, none of them that have been first-round quality tight ends have busted. Yes, guys like Eric Ebron have not been insane, but he's been fantasy relevant. I can list you a whole lot of receivers and running backs that were drafted around the same spots that have busted. Name me a tight end.
No, I can't name one, but the caveat here is that it's not hard to be a top 12 to 15 tight end. It's not hard. There's so many guys that just score. Anyone that scores like 5 touchdowns as a tight end is going to be a top 12 tight end. Like, that's just how it is. The position is so top heavy at the moment that it's not that hard to be that high of a ranked tight end. And if you're going to put in a first round pick draft capital in terms of NFL draft, like to a guy like, a Noah Fant or a TJ Hawkinson, like those guys are going to get opportunities to play and they're going to get balls thrown their way. And it makes it a pretty likely scenario that they're going to get enough targets and enough volume to just score a couple times, and that's all you really need to be a top tight end. So, yes and no. I agree.
I'm not advocating for you to just start drafting any first-round quality tight end, but you can't tell me I'm wrong. The other two, we'll just speed run this real quick. Running backs, they're the cheapest in dynasty drafts, in rookie drafts. Contrary to popular belief, a whole lot of people say, oh, when you're a rebuilding team, don't draft running backs. Only place you're getting an RB1 for less than a single first-round pick is in the rookie draft.
Yeah.
That one I agree with.
You have to do your scouting. There's an occasional miss each year with running backs.
They're highly varied. Like, dude, running backs are crazy, dude. They can go up and down and sideways like no other position.
Yeah. I mean, no, I didn't say they were bad takes. Like, they're all correct and reasonable. I just thought it was hilarious that they came to you in a dream.
All right, let's go back to trending up, trending down. Let's get out of here.
Because you're trending down.
All right, so just to get back on track here, my trending down, because I've already done my trending up, is Baker Mayfield. So now my trending down is Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett is wide receiver 11 in half PPR this year. But you take out he had 2 massive games of 3 touchdowns. If you take out those 2 games, his totals read 13, 16, 5, 6.5, 5.5, 6, 9, 17, 3, 9, 7, 5. He's not been that good. And on top of it, Russ hasn't looked that good either in the past few weeks. DK Metcalf, I don't think it's a question, is the number 1 receiver on the Seahawks team and will be moving forward for the significant future. I don't know how much I trust Tyler Lockett moving into next year. And if I could sell him, it's a guy that I would sell.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Just because of those touchdown games, if you try to sell him this offseason, someone's going to look and be like, oh, wide receiver 11 last year. Still what? Maybe like 28 years old? I don't know his exact age.
27 now. Oh, no, he's 28. Will be 29 next year.
Yeah.
So
someone may rank him pretty highly, but I agree with you. DK Metcalf, I think early in the year we were kind of viewing it almost as a 1A, 1B. Maybe some people were. I think all 3 of us have kind of always had DK Metcalf ranked way more valuable. And it's just kind of continued to cement. He's easily the wide receiver 1 on that offense. And Lockett is a great 2. One of the best 2s in the NFL. But it's DK's receiving core, and once receivers start to hit around like 30 plus, like unless they're a freak like Julio, it's kind of tough. He's someone I agree with you, Jake. I would probably try to sell this offseason.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. And Lunas brought up a player in my trending up, trending down. If you guys want to move that there, my trending down of the week is Julio Jones. And Jake's been trying to sell him in that league for probably over a year at this point.
Almost 2 years at this point. I've been trying to sell this man. Not one.
Yeah, it's a tough situation because when he's healthy, he's very good, but he missed 2 games in the beginning of the season, and now he's missed 3 games near the end. So that's 5 games on the year he's missed, and it's becoming like a recurring theme for Julio Jones of is he going to be is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Then if he does play, is he going to be healthy enough that he actually will be fantasy relevant, or is it just like a decoy kind of game, which is the worst? I'd rather him just not play because then I'm putting him in and he's scoring 2 points. When I could have put in just a scrub and he could have got me 7 points kind of thing. It just it hurts. And now we have Julio Jones. He's getting to be older. He's 31 years old. He'll be 32 going into the next season. We all agree that he's a very, ridiculous athlete. But he also has Matt Ryan throwing him, who's also getting older. The whole Falcons offense is just getting older as a team. And it's just hard for me to trust someone now like Julio Jones. Do I still think he's a great player? Yes. The questions are, will he stay healthy, and when is that eventual cliff going to come hit? Because every wide receiver has that cliff, and it's only a matter of time at this point.
Yeah, to me, it's really sad because obviously, we were not that young when Julio Jones got drafted, and now he's the old guy in the league, and he's almost on his way out. And it's sad to see almost that it's a changing of the guard. He's been one of the best wide receivers in all of football for the past decade at this point, and it's starting to quickly change, really. And I guess the question is, what would you want for Julio Jones? Help me out here, JT. What would you want for Julio Jones?
I mean, I still want that first, but I don't know who's giving you the first. I want. It's tough because there's a lot of players with that where it's they're still producing at an elite level, but they're older. So because it's a dynasty, people love their rookies. They love the young players. So it does, especially if you have Julio Jones, that probably means you're competing. Most chances are, if you're a rebuilding team, you wouldn't keep Julio Jones. So there's only a small, probably you cut the league in half with however many people want Julio Jones. Just all
just
the
from the
teams
start, based on contenders. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're already only dealing with, if you're in a 12-team league, probably 5 other teams. I think his value probably still is a pick 108. Pick 108 is probably what he should be valued, but it's just I don't see anyone giving up that kind of price.
You're not going to get that because the teams that would want him, like you say, are the contenders, and a lot of them either have traded their pick away in the season to help bolster their roster, or B, are going to say, let me get a little younger because my team's getting up there, and take a Devontae Smith at pick 8 or whoever falls to pick 8.
Yeah. So at this point, he's probably just going to ride out, into the sunset on your team, and he'll give you some very solid last couple of years where you'll enjoy him. But it is what it is.
Jake.
Yeah.
If someone offered to you today right now, pick 202 for Julio Jones, what are you saying?
Give me a second next year.
For this draft.
Yeah, 202 in a second next year.
202 in a second next year? Okay,
or fair. If you have 2 in this draft, I'll take 2 in this draft.
Okay. No, I was just wondering where you had him valued at. Because it's tricky because he has dealt with some injury concerns this year. He's going to be 32 next season. But when he plays, he still plays well. When he's on the field,
I agree. And obviously, as JT was saying, only contending teams would want him. I'm a contending team. I'm in the semifinals at this current moment. And, it's I still want to move on. I have a pretty strong receiving core outside of Julio Jones. I'm very lucky. I have, a guy in DeAndre Hopkins who is a consensus top 3 wide receiver at worst here. I have Stephon Diggs, who we all had in our top 10, and I have Adam Thielen, who is another guy that's aging out as well, but he's had another good season. So I'm in a good spot where I can afford this Julio Jones injury and to have him not play. However, I would like probably an early second and a mid-second. This year would be ideal for me to move him just to help get some youth in my roster.
What's the lowest individual pick you trade him for? Like 109?
Lowest pick by itself?
Yeah.
I would probably do 110. Like maybe on draft night, if I got to see how the board was shaping up, I'd go a little lower. Maybe I'd go 111, but not much less than that.
Okay, that's fair.
That's why I almost think that 2 seconds might be a better deal, especially in this draft. I could easily get 2 young wide receivers in the second round that are just as good as the guys taken in the first. I think this year's wide receiver class is completely stacked.
Yeah, the second round's going to be nice this year.
Yeah.
Now, my other guy is someone that's also aging. He's starting to reach that cliff too, but he's my trending up because I believe in his value and where he's probably ranked right now, and that's Melvin Gordon. It's been quiet because of how bad the Denver Broncos offense is, but he's had no less than 5 yards per carry over the last 3 games. Other than the one game against New Orleans where he had 12 carries for 31 yards, he's been averaging over 4 yards per carry for the past 2 months. Last week in a half PPR, he scored 22 points against Buffalo. He's shown that he's a solid player on the Broncos. They signed him. He'll still be on contract next year. My thing with him is, what's key about it is he's got a DUI court hearing coming up. Right after that, he was able to get pushed after the NFL season, which is kind of funny. But it's likely, knowing the NFL, he'll probably get a couple game suspension. I think the standard's like 2 or 3 games. So when that comes down, I think he's a solid player to just go out and buy. Because he's going to come back. He's on contract. They didn't cut him when the DUI actually happened. So it's not like they're going to punish him for it. We know that Courtland Sutton's coming back. However healthy he is, who knows? But it's another weapon. So that teams aren't going to just stack the box against Drew Lock because they know that there's solid weapons on the outside, no fan on the inside. I just like Melvin Gordon as, he would be a nice RB2 to own, I believe, next year. If you're a contending team, he's someone I would go out and buy. Other than that, probably not so much, but he's someone I've got my eye on for next year if I'm a contender.
I was going to say the only way I'd have him on my roster is if I'm a contender, because I do think he will be a nice RB2 next year. I agree. I have no idea after that because he signed a 2-year contract with Denver, I believe, right?
Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah, after next season, I don't know. I wouldn't have a ton of faith in him, but I do think he will be fantasy relevant next year and a pretty good RB2. If I didn't think I could actually win next year, I would be trying to sell him to one of the top teams if I owned him.
Problem is, I don't think the price is going to match here. I don't think an owner of Melvin Gordon is going to want to sell him as low as a good contender is going to want to buy him, just because, like you said, he's a free agent after next year. That offense is a question mark in itself, just with Drew Lock not being as good as people thought or hoped. I don't know. I'm not as high on Melvin Gordon here. I think he's more of a guy that I would just stay away from just because of the uncertainty of the Broncos and his contract situation, unless you can get him for like a very cheap price of a 3rd round pick. But I don't think the owner would sell at that point.
I don't think he's valued at much more than a mid-second, even by the rosiest of owners on him.
I couldn't give up a second in this draft for Melvin Gordon. This draft's just too good.
I could give up a late second because if I need a running back, I don't see any running backs in the late second that I believe in more than Melvin Gordon.
I completely agree. I think that buying Melvin Gordon for a mid-second is honestly a fantastic deal.
Yeah.
Depends on your roster construction. If you need a running back, I agree. It's a good buy because you're not going to find a running back that good in the second round. But if you need a wide receiver, I just don't think it's worth it at all.
I do think you're right, though. This draft's a little weird because I think we're going to have a lot more depth at the running back position. I haven't finished my analysis on the running backs, but it looks like there's going to be a little bit more depth in the second and third rounds at the running back position compared to last year. So I think that you will be able to have a little bit more success in the second round. Right now, the only guy that's really looking all that good is Zach Moss, really. You have a few other dart throwing guys. Maybe an Anthony McFarland could pan out. But everyone else is looking a little murky. This year, I think that you might be able to find some good value. But at the end of the day, who are you finding in the second round? And this is 206, 207, 208 that has more talent than Melvin Gordon.
I'm just saying, I think there's a possibility with, obviously talking Superflex, that 5 quarterbacks go in the first round. If not, they're going to go early in the second round. So I just think there's a lot of position players that could slip down the board a little bit.
No, that's fair. That's completely fair.
All right. Who are you trending up and trending down, Linus?
Before I say my trending up, trending down, I don't have the game on my TV. I just want to know how the fuck does Ben Roethlisberger have 4 completions for -5 yards?
I don't want to talk about it, man.
It's quite literally down 10-0 to the Bengals.
I'm pissed. The last leg of my parlay is Pittsburgh -14, but okay,
Lunis,
we'll get into it.
I'm just gonna say, you just jinxed the shit out of me. I'm just putting that now.
I would not mind that. That'd be pretty funny.
I didn't mean to.
I'm just throwing that out there.
I didn't mean to. I'm just confused.
You son of a bitch!
I'm looking at the box score and I'm left confused. But okay, moving on. My trending up this week is David Montgomery. Once again, he had a great game last weekend. Depending on your scoring format, around 27, 28 points. And the last couple of games, he's been playing well. I'm pulling up this exact number for you real quick. Yeah. David Montgomery, over his first 9 games, had 110 PPR points, and over his last 4 games has had 106. And I think a few of us weren't insanely high on David Montgomery. Like I know there was one point really early in the season where I was like, he kind of seems replaceable. I don't think he's anything like that special. But once again, someone where I'm like, okay, you gotta kind of just like prove me wrong. Like he's looked great. And obviously you can make the case he's had a really favorable running back matchup, matchups like the second half of the season. In terms of Minnesota and especially Houston. But he's even with that, he's been better than I thought. Like if you just watch some of the runs he's had, he's making people miss. He's looking like he has a bit more burst than I expected him to. And again, this isn't so much for this season, but just like how do you guys feel about him heading into next season? How do you guys value him? Because I think right now, I think he's increased his value a ton heading into next season. I think we can debate if maybe this easy schedule makes him a sell high, which I think there's a pretty good case for. And I'm sure one of you is probably going to say that, but I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, Jake and I I feel like we predicted this almost to a T.
We did in our Thanksgiving episode, and we did the playoff buys. I think it was you that said to buy David Montgomery for this playoff run, and you hit it on the head, so I'm going to let you take this one.
Yeah. I mean, we knew what his schedule was going to be. We knew what his usage was going to be. Mitch Trubisky coming in, it helped him more than I actually expected it to. But it was on a tee for Montgomery to perform, and he did. And I think he's the perfect sell high now. Because I was looking in the Dynasty communities, and some people were saying he's a RB1, top 15 RB. I don't have that grade on him. You look.
Who would say that?
Look around. I swear.
Yeah, JT's right. JT's right.
I don't see it. I still don't
look around.
Subs. People are trying to make the top 15 argument. It's not consensus necessarily, but there's a community of people that legitimately believe that he's a top 15 running back right now.
It's starting to bubble up, and it's such recency bias. Has he looked better? Yes. Is he better than 15 other running backs currently? No. Like there are so many other running backs that I just like their potential or like what they're doing better than David Montgomery. I like their skill sets. I like their situations better than David Montgomery, because David Montgomery is someone that needs that crazy amount of usage to be relevant. And it's just something that could be gone in a second. We still have Tariq Cohen coming back. I don't even think anyone's really mentioned that. Someone that is a solid pass catching back for the Bears, who will take touches away from David Montgomery. We said earlier, you could probably buy him just for a straight second, maybe 2 seconds. Now you could probably almost definitely sell him for a late first. If someone's willing to give you a mid first, he would be gone yesterday for me.
Any first I'm selling him for.
Yeah.
Any first. I think I agree. Any first here, he has. You have to pound the step button.
Get Montgomery off my team. Give me all that value, because I just don't trust it. I don't trust him.
I mean, if you get one of these top 15 running back lunatics, you might be able to snag 2 at this rate.
I know. I want those people in our league.
I'm convinced some people purposely push a narrative about their own players that they're trying to move. Like
100%.
Like if there's someone I'm trying to trade, I'm like going onto the Dynasty Reddit and be like, "Oh, this running back's a top 15 back. You guys should trade for him." And it makes it easier for you to trade him away.
Once again, the Dynasty Reddit is clown is talking to himself. So keep that in mind.
Don't put me in that mess.
But it's not just I follow a couple guys on Twitter, and it's not just them that are starting to hype him up. And I don't know. Maybe they've been watching the past year and a half differently than I have, because I don't trust it. But who knows? Maybe I'm just a Montgomery hater.
Would you guys, real quick, rather have Montgomery or Cam Akers right now?
Is that close? Is that even close? I had Cam Akers. I had Cam Akers in my top 15 2 weeks ago before he broke out. Now he's actually played well. You think he's going to go down?
I agree. I easily have Akers, but I'm saying he's someone who maybe is comparable to those people who are rating Montgomery high.
No, I like JT said. If I can get one first, I'm shipping him off. If I can get a first and plus anything, it's a bonus.
David Montgomery's in my Chris Carson, Ronald Jones, Kenyon Drake kind of tier.
Yeah.
They're outside the top 15, but they're that next group of guys who they're not terrible. They're someone you like on your team, but probably not someone that you're going out and buying.
Yep.
Next question: Chase Edmonds or David Montgomery?
Montgomery.
I mean, I'll take Montgomery, but I do like the upside of Chase Edmonds. I'm not going to put him down, but Montgomery just is more of a sure thing here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Montgomery. I think that's close, because I actually like Edmonds, especially if they don't re-sign Drake. So to move into my trending down, I have Philip Lindsay. Again, I don't think it's crazy down value. I won't make this long because it's kind of he's been put in weird situations. His rookie year, it was supposed to be Royce Freeman. Everyone was drafting Royce Freeman high. And Royce Freeman, he didn't really necessarily lose his job. It was more that Lindsay just took it from him because Lindsay was playing so well. But now this season, I'm gonna pull up the numbers. It's been pretty. He's running back 61. The last couple of weeks, what does he put up? He's put up 6, 4, 2.6, 2, 8.2. He's had 2 games total this year in double digits, with the highest being 15. I feel like I viewed him having such a higher dynasty outlook even just a year or two ago. But assuming that Melvin Gordon's still on the team next season, and which he will be, and he is a better running back than Lindsay, By the time Melvin Gordon's gone, Lindsey's going to be around turning 28. You know what I mean? I just think my perception of him around like a year and a half ago, it's just his value has gone down a lot. Because I've always thought he was talented, but it just I don't know. It's just kind of been shitty situations, and he's aging, which is big for a running back.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna throw out there James Robinson, same kind of guy.
They're different.
That's actually a really good point.
They're
throw that out there.
James Robinson's a way better pass blocker than Philip Lindsay ever was. He's got a better skill set, in my opinion, than Philip Lindsay. Do I think there's a possibility?
His rookie year was RB12.
Yeah, James Robinson's putting up record numbers his rookie year. Like, he's better than Philip Lindsay.
Philip Lindsay had 2 straight 1,000-yard seasons to start his career.
I get that, but James Robinson's gonna break like 1,300 if he didn't already.
I'm saying James Robinson is having a better season than Lindsay's had, but I'm just saying the trajectory of their careers could be very similar. And I'm still a sell high on James Robinson, personally.
James Robinson probably isn't someone that I'm going out to buy, but I'd consider I'd hold him. I think, unless you're getting like that solid RB1 offer, which I feel like most people in Dynasty aren't going to give you currently. He's someone I'd hold.
I'm with Jake. Right. If I own James Robinson, I'm selling him this offseason. The Trevor Lawrence thing kind of makes it tougher, but I think I would.
I'll get into the next segment.
Yeah.
So our next segment, it's something new we're gonna just try out here. We're gonna call it Take the Floor. Basically, each of us are just gonna, say our takes, have the floor for a full, 2 to 5 minutes. Just say what's going on in our heads right now, and then the other guys will jump in and give some comments, some feedback, and then the next guy will go. So, should I kick it off, or do you want to, JT?
I'll go first if you want me to. All right. I guess it's more of like a little rant. So, my take the floor is: don't let the hive mind and preconceived notions affect your rookie draft. And I'll expand that even more to, values of certain players. Because we've seen it's happened so many times where certain players are ranked one way, and then recency bias, a change in situation, whatever happens, the players either gain a ton of value or lose a lot of value. Now, is it possible for a player to gain a lot of value or lose a lot of value? Sure. Like, you've got James Robinson, you've got Carson Wentz's, who one's gained a lot of value, one's lost a lot of value. But when we talk about, especially with rookie drafts, which is how you're going to build your team if you're a rebuilding team, or how you're going to stay competitive if you're a contender, if you do have picks, it's players that start to, shoot up draft boards like a CEH. Did CEH have a solid season this year? He's probably done, looking at his new injury. Yeah, he had a solid year. Should he have been the RB1 drafted? I don't think so. He was never ranked as my RB1 prospect. I get that he went to a great situation in Kansas City, and someone who I did have ranked very highly in DeAndre Swift went to a bad situation in Detroit. But someone in between, Jonathan Taylor, went to a good situation, and I had him ranked above CEH. CEH was never a real high draft prospect on me. I thought, he's kind of just a product of the LSU offense in what was going on. But this isn't a CEH bashing. It's happened with plenty of different rookies and stuff. Players like Justin Herbert got shot down rookie drafts because of his last season at Oregon. Were there question marks? Yeah, like he had never taken a snap under center. He looked a little shaky in his final year. He was going to be the quarterback 1 drafted, or close to. He was pretty highly ranked going into his junior season. Like, prospects like that don't just all of a sudden forget how to play football. He got drafted to a decent situation. I mean, it took a crazy, unheard of incident with Tyrod Taylor for him to start, but we've seen what kind of player he is. It just happens all the time. So now going into this season, we're going to have players like Trey Lance, like Kyle Pitts, like Zach Wilson and Kyle Trask, who all look good. Now the issue is, they're not all going to get drafted to great situations. If Kyle Pitts gets drafted to a bad situation, I'm still very high on Kyle Pitts. I think he's a generational kind of tight end talent. He's going to be already automatically getting drafted. I have him ranked as my top 5 tight end. He'll be T5 unless he goes to a great situation, but he's already someone that's so great. So don't let people like that, pass you up for you to go and pick a different receiver like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, sure, could he be great too? Yes, but it's just you gotta go with the players that you know, and it's just trust your gut instinct. Don't trust the hive mind, because players are always people on the Dynasty subreddit, people on Twitter, people you talk to in person, they're all going to have their own notions of players, and it's not going to be right. They're all, for the most part, they all know just about as much as you do. So just trust yourself and do your own homework.
Facts.
Thank you.
Facts. I definitely
agree. You hit it. I think that last thing was very important, and that's do your own homework. If you care about Dynasty fantasy football, you do your own homework, and you're going to figure out who you like and who you don't. Watch the college tape. Just watch it, and you'll understand who's good, who's not, who's going to fit in the NFL system, where they go. Obviously, we're not saying that fit doesn't play a factor here, but definitely talent always shines through. Just look at, like JT said, DeAndre Swift. Coming into the draft, I think he was pretty much everyone's 1A and 1B with Jonathan Taylor in either order you had, just talent-wise of running backs in this class. And, he fell down boards a little bit because he went to a team in Detroit that already had, Kerryon Johnson, just signed an Adrian Peterson. So he fell down draft boards a little bit on top of that offense not being very good in the first place. So, but now I think we did our rankings the last 2 weeks ago, and all of us had DeAndre Swift in the top 10 of running backs. Obviously, or I think I maybe had him outside at 12. He was all in all of our top 15s. But the point is, talent always finds a way to shine through. Look at Justin Herbert. Look at DeAndre Swift. There's been many other examples. Obviously, there are busts that are very talented players in college, and they just don't pan out. But in the end, I always say draft talent, not situation.
You can do your own homework, or you can listen to 3rd and 20 Dynasty podcast and just regurgitate our takes.
Just take our rankings.
We are always right.
We'll save you time.
If we're wrong, it's something with the universe that went wrong,
or it's
Jake's fault.
Or you listen to Lynn. Again,
don't listen to Clowness. Don't listen to Clowness. That's the only thing.
Speaking of takes, I'm about to hit you with a hot one. This could backfire, but you know what? Fuck the Clowness takes. I'm doing it.
The disrespect that is about to come to our boy Trey Lance is just
listen,
disgusting.
Man. I love Trey Lance. I have Trask as the QB3 and extremely close to Fields at the QB2. I would not be surprised at all if he was drafted ahead of Fields or do offseason workouts impressing GMs, or if he was better in the NFL. Now, listen, I know everyone coming into the season just kind of takes the consensus top 5, top 3. Everyone consensus was like, oh, Fields is a lock for number 2. Oh, Lance is a lock for number 3. I don't know anyone else. If you watch the college season, watch the tape, Trask has kind of been this year's like Burrow light. I'm saying Burrow light. Like, obviously, he's not been on Burrow's level, but he's been kind of the most impressive, just kind of breakout SEC quarterback that's been putting up numbers against extremely tough competition. He just put up 46 against Alabama in kind of a duel with Mac Jones. Mac Jones has a much better team around him, and he just is pretty much him, Pitts, and Tony. And I think whoever gets Trask is about to get an elite NFL quarterback. I will say with these quarterbacks, make sure you watch them and just don't stick to the one ranking at the top of the season. And like what JT was saying, just like watch them and see who look through the numbers against the competition. Fields hasn't been flawless. I don't think Fields has done well. I do think he will ultimately be the QB2 and is extremely talented. I don't think he was as good as people would have wanted him to be against tougher competition, especially some of those big games for him this year, most recently Northwestern, to the point where don't feel like you're I don't know, just don't feel like you're going crazy for thinking I just see this one quarterback playing much better all season. Obviously, the NFL scouts are going to know on a higher level than us, but just because a fantasy account said at the beginning of the season that these three are the top three quarterbacks doesn't necessarily mean that's going to stay that way through the end of next season. We saw Joe Burrow break out last year and ended up being the best rookie quarterback. Well, actually, no, second best behind Herbert, which no one even had Herbert as QB1 either. Just I don't know. Quarterbacks are kind of tough to evaluate when going on the pro level, how they'll fully adjust. So if at the end of the day, I can tell you in fantasy just to stick to your gut. So if you're just seeing something, stick with it. That's what I feel. I feel like Trask is not far away from Fields at all, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's the second best quarterback in this draft class.
Yeah,
that's my minute rant.
That goes off of what JT said of just do your own homework and stick to your gut. So I can't say much with that.
There are a couple tried and true things though that you can typically trust, and that's stuff like wide receivers taken on the third day likely aren't going to pan out. There's so much data showing that there's such a few amount of wide receivers who get drafted on the third day that end up posting a wide receiver 1 season in the year or even a wide receiver 2 season. So, there are certain aspects that you can trust. Quarterbacks drafted in the first round are definitely more likely to be, starting quarterbacks for 3 years out than quarterbacks drafted in rounds 2 on. Like, there's just certain things that you can trust. But when it comes to, different players and different, community people's rankings and whatnot, like, that's kind of when you got to trust your own gut. Sorry to cut you off there, Jake.
You're good. Yeah, so my take's a little different. It's going to be about, I've said, if you've listened to us in the past, it's the take I've had many times. I stand by it. I think it's one of the best things you can do this offseason. And I think this offseason is the number one time to sell all Ravens not named J.K. Dobbins. They're coming off 2 good games against the Browns and the Jaguars, where pretty much everyone on the team, Hollywood Brown, Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson, even guys like Miles Boykin got involved. Just great games. And then they have an easy schedule to finish the year in their last 2 games as well. They play the Giants and the Bengals. Obviously, the Giants aren't, that much of a pushover on the defensive side of the football. But as we saw last week against the Browns, you can move the ball on them not easily, but you can. And then the Jaguars or the Bengals are the next team, which have been just a complete joke all season. Not all their fault. They lost Joe Burrow, but they haven't been a good team. So coming off of those games and potentially a playoff run by the Ravens, assuming they make the playoffs and win out here, I think people are going to be riding high, thinking, Hollywood Brown is, the next breakout wide receiver. And, Mark Andrews is a top 5 tight end moving forward completely. I mean, he probably is, but I think he's trending down in that, especially with guys like Kyle Pitts and the tight end from Penn State coming in, who are both highly rated tight ends. I think he's heading in the wrong direction there. Like I said, the only player I would keep here, and it's just because I think he's looked really good in the past, and I had a good grade on him coming out of school. It's J.K. Dobbins. This team is a running football team. Obviously, I think his floor his ceiling is kind of capped due to Lamar Jackson being a very efficient runner of the football. So I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world to sell him. But I do think, Mark Ingram was a healthy scratch this week. I think he's moving up the depth chart and trending in the right direction on this team, and he will take over the majority of the carries next year. But in terms of Lamar Jackson, I do think this is the perfect time to sell him. He's coming off of 3 straight over 25-point games. He's going to probably have 2 more finishing out the season. He'll probably potentially win a playoff game in the NFL season. I'm not even talking about fantasy now. So he's gonna leave the right taste in fantasy owners' mouths here, and I think you're gonna be able to get a haul for him, as you should, being a 24-year-old quarterback that's been an MVP. But this is a great time to sell a quarterback because assuming you're going to get multiple first-round picks here for Lamar Jackson in a Superflex league, they're like JT and Lunas just talked about, there's a bunch of quarterbacks in this draft. You can go out and get one and get another, wide receiver maybe in the first round or a running back in the first round. I think it's a great time to sell all your Ravens. You'll be able to get a lot of picks here because they're going to be good in the stretch half of the season. And it's just a way to rebuild your team really quickly for a team that I think is kind of a fraud. Earlier in the season when they were playing better teams, we saw they struggled. They struggled a lot.
Well, strong words at the end. I don't know if I necessarily disagree with it. I do think they're really good against bad teams. And then they struggle against the really good teams. But yeah, I guess I think we've agreed with you for the most part that it probably should be time to sell a good chunk of the Ravens. I do not see the offense getting much better. I'm a little bit of a Hollywood Brown truther. He's been playing pretty well the past couple games. But yeah, like if the right offer came to me, I wouldn't be opposed to selling him.
Yeah, Jake, I agree with everything except for like JT. Hollywood, I still got some faith. It's because he's just so inconsistent. I think I'm just banking on him getting it together because he's so
I don't think him being inconsistent is his fault. I think it's a product of the offense that he's a part of. This team is going to run the ball, 30 plus times a game between Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, even Gus Edwards. I think had 9 carries last week. So there's a bunch of people they're just going to be a run-heavy team. There's going to be limited pass opportunities, and a lot of those are going to go to Mark Andrews because he's the number 1 target on this team.
That's true. But no, even just without the opportunities, which I agree with you, you are right because it is kind of like the similar dilemma, kind of almost with Ruggs. But even just that Cleveland game, he was dropping a lot of passes. Like they were a couple easy passes he was dropping. Then just out of nowhere, he breaks out of the safeties coverage for like a 50-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter. It's weird. Hollywood's such a weird player. He's someone I like. I think we're just waiting on him to be more consistent, but I can't dispute your take because I do say I still believe in Hollywood Brown. The only guy I would feel really good about is Dobbins.
Yeah,
in terms of increasing their value from what they are now.
Yeah, and like I said, that's the only guy on the Ravens that I'd hold right now, just because I don't think Lamar Jackson's value from this point is going to get much higher than coming off these games coming up. And same thing with potentially Mark Andrews. I think, with some influx of young tight end talent, he's going to move down some people's boards, and maybe he's not a consensus top 5 tight end anymore next year with the way this offense looked early in the season. So just an idea. I would do it. I think it's the move. I have Lamar Jackson. I will be looking to sell him this offseason for anyone interested.
Okay. With that, I think we're good to wrap up episode 16, right?
Yeah, I think that's all we got.
Merry Christmas, listeners. I hope you enjoy your holidays and your new year.
Yeah,
and happy holidays. People still alive in the playoffs.
Yeah, happy holidays. Good luck in all your playoff matchups. I hope we're helping you win some games here. As always, check us out at thirdand20.com. That's 3rdand20.com. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter. That's at 3rd&20_ at the end.
And look us up on YouTube now, too.
Yeah,
3rd&20 on YouTube.
Got the video form.
Yeah, beautiful faces. And Jake.
We're gonna make that joke every week there, JT. Pat yourself on the back.
I'm gonna keep pounding it until it works. Until we get over a certain amount of viewers, I'll stop it.
What's the number? What's the number of viewers?
5 million.
5 million.
500 million. Good point, Lance.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.